Hello, everyone. I want to ask you something that most people never consider. What is intelligence, really? Is it how much you know? Is it how fast you can recall information? Is it your score on a test, or the number of books you have read, or the complexity of the vocabulary you use? Most people believe one of these things. But the research tells a different story. Studies from the fields of cognitive science and educational psychology consistently show that the single strongest predictor of intellectual achievement is not raw intelligence as measured by IQ tests. It is the ability to focus deeply on a single task for extended periods of time. Deep focus is not just a tool of intelligence. Deep focus is the foundation of intelligence. And here is what makes this both alarming and exciting. Deep focus is disappearing from the modern world. The average knowledge worker is interrupted or switches tasks every 3 minutes and 5 seconds. Studies show that only 3% of working time is spent in unbroken focus for more than 20 minutes. The capacity for deep, sustained, focused thinking is becoming one of the rarest and most valuable skills in the world. This means something extraordinary. In a world where most people have lost the ability to focus deeply, the person who can protect their focus has a significant intellectual advantage. Not because they are smarter, but because they can do something most people can no longer do. Think deeply. And deep thinking is where real intelligence, real learning, and real English fluency live. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what deep focus is, why intelligent people protect it so fiercely, how it connects to your English learning, and how to develop it starting today. Stay with me until the end, because this might be the most practically powerful thing you learn this year. Part 1. What deep focus really is. Cal Newport, a computer science professor at Georgetown University and author of the book Deepwork, defines deep focus as professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. He calls this deep work, and he argues that it is becoming both increasingly rare and increasingly valuable at exactly the same time. But deep focus is not just for professional work. It is the mental state in which all meaningful learning happens. The state in which a new English word moves from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. The state in which a grammar pattern stops feeling like a rule you have to remember and starts feeling like a natural part of how you think. The state in which your speaking fluency improves most rapidly. Research from the Flow Research Collective shows that people in states of deep focus, what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow, learn new information 5 times faster than in normal states of distracted attention. They also report higher levels of satisfaction, creativity, and well-being during and after these states. Deep focus is not just more productive. It feels fundamentally better. The opposite of deep focus is what Newport calls shallow work. Tasks that can be performed while distracted. Email. Social media. Routine communications. These activities do not require deep cognitive engagement and produce relatively little value. Most people spend the majority of their cognitive energy on shallow work, and then wonder why their thinking and their learning feel so unsatisfying. The distinction matters enormously for English learners. There is shallow English practice, reviewing vocabulary while watching television, listening to English in the background while doing other things, scrolling through English social media. And there is deep English practice, sitting with a challenging text until you fully understand it, speaking out loud with full concentration on accuracy and expression, listening to complex English with your full undivided attention. The latter produces results that dwarf the former. Part 2. Why intelligence requires protection. Here is the insight that changes how you think about your mind. Your ability to focus deeply is not fixed. It is a capacity that can be built up or depleted, depending on how you treat it. And most people are depleting it without realizing. Research by Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine found that when people are regularly interrupted, they begin to self-interrupt. After years of working in distraction-filled environments, people start checking their phones, switching between tasks, and seeking novelty even when no external interruption has occurred. The habit of distraction becomes internalized. The brain starts generating its own interruptions because it has been trained to expect them. This means that the more you allow distraction into your life, the less capable of deep focus your brain becomes. Not as punishment, not as a permanent change, but as adaptation. Your brain adapts to the environment you give it. If that environment is constantly fragmented, your brain becomes fragmented. If it is consistently deep and focused, your brain becomes capable of depth and focus. Intelligent people understand this. They understand that their cognitive capacity is not a given. It is something they actively maintain and protect. Every time they choose deep work over distraction, they are not just being disciplined. They are investing in the quality of their own thinking. They are maintaining and developing the mental tool that underlies everything they want to achieve. For English learners, this investment pays extraordinary dividends. Every session of deep, focused English practice builds not just language ability but cognitive capacity. The ability to sustain attention, to process complex information, to hold multiple linguistic patterns in mind simultaneously. These are capabilities that transfer beyond English into every area of intellectual life. Part 3. The 4 depths of focus. Not all focus is equal. Research by neuroscientist Andrew Huberman at Stanford University identifies different states of focus that have different neurological signatures and different levels of cognitive power. Understanding these states helps you deliberately cultivate the deepest and most powerful ones. The shallowest state is reactive focus, the kind of attention you give to your phone, your social media feed, or casual conversation. Your brain is engaged but not deeply. Information is processed but not deeply integrated. This is the state most people spend most of their time in. The second state is task focus, the concentration you give to routine work that requires some attention but not intense cognitive engagement. Reading straightforward text, completing familiar tasks, having comfortable conversations in your native language. Useful but not transformative. The third state is deep focus, the state Newport describes. Sustained, single-pointed attention on a cognitively demanding task. Writing, complex problem-solving, learning new language patterns, deeply understanding difficult ideas. This is where real intellectual development happens. Where new neural connections are formed. Where English fluency accelerates. And the deepest state is flow, Csikszentmihalyi's concept of complete absorption where the sense of effort disappears and performance reaches its peak. Flow requires a specific balance between challenge and skill. The task must be difficult enough to require full attention, but not so difficult that it produces anxiety. For English learners, this is the sweet spot where practice feels effortless and results are dramatic. The goal is to spend more time in the third and fourth states. And the path there is consistent practice of deep, undistracted focus until your brain learns to enter these states more easily and stay in them longer. Part 4. Deep focus and language acquisition. Let us get specific about what deep focus does for English learning. Because the research here is both compelling and directly actionable. Studies in applied linguistics show that vocabulary is acquired most durably when it is encountered in a state of focused, active engagement. When you are fully present with a text, noticing words in context, inferring meaning, connecting new words to existing knowledge, the memory trace created is significantly stronger than when words are encountered during distracted reading. Research by Nick Ellis at the University of Michigan shows that language patterns, the deep grammatical structures that underlie fluency, are internalized primarily through noticing. Paying explicit attention to how language is used, how sentences are structured, how native speakers express ideas. This noticing only happens in a state of genuine focused attention. Distracted input does not produce the same noticing effect and therefore does not produce the same acquisition. And speaking fluency, specifically, is built through focused production practice. When you speak in English with full, conscious attention on what you are trying to express, you are building the neural pathways that will eventually make that expression automatic. The automaticity comes later. But the conscious, focused, deliberate practice must come first. Research by Anders Ericsson, the psychologist who developed the concept of deliberate practice, shows that the quality that distinguishes expert performers from good performers is not the amount of practice but the quality of attention they bring to practice. Experts practice with full focus on specific aspects of their performance, monitoring results, adjusting approach, and pushing deliberately at the edges of their current ability. This is the model for English learning that produces extraordinary results. Part 5. Creating conditions for deep focus. Understanding why deep focus matters is the beginning. Building the conditions that make it possible is where the real work happens. And the good news is that creating conditions for deep focus does not require radical changes to your life. It requires specific, strategic adjustments to your environment and your routine. The single most powerful thing you can do is create a designated focus environment. A specific place associated in your mind with deep work. When you sit there, your brain receives a signal. This is where we focus. Over time, entering that environment begins to automatically shift your brain toward a focus state. Research by Roy Baumeister shows that environmental cues are among the most powerful triggers of behavioral states. Use them deliberately. Remove what competes for your attention before you begin. Phone in another room. Notifications off. Potentially distracting websites blocked using an app. These removals are not about willpower. They are about engineering your environment so that the path of least resistance leads toward focus rather than away from it. Set a specific focus duration before you begin. Research supports the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of deep focus followed by a 5-minute break, as an effective structure for building focus capacity. But any specific, bounded duration works. When your brain knows the focus has a defined endpoint, it is more willing to commit fully to it. Open-ended focus sessions are cognitively less efficient. And begin with the most cognitively demanding task. Your mental energy is highest at the start of a focus session. Using it on easy, comfortable tasks first is a cognitive mistake. Begin with the English practice that requires the most from you. The most challenging listening. The most difficult reading. The most uncomfortable speaking practice. That is where the most growth happens. Part 6. The deep work ritual. The most productive, most intellectually accomplished people in history have shared one practice that most people overlook. They have rituals for entering focus states. Consistent, specific actions that signal to their brain that deep work is about to begin. Charles Darwin walked the same path every morning before his most productive thinking periods. Maya Angelou rented a hotel room specifically for writing and kept it sparse and free from distraction. Beethoven poured water over his hands each morning before composing. These are not superstitions. They are behavioral cues that train the brain to enter focus states on demand. Research on pre-performance routines shows that consistent preparatory behaviors reduce cognitive interference, increase confidence, and improve performance quality. By consistently pairing specific actions with deep focus, you create a neurological shortcut that makes entering focus states faster and easier over time. For your English practice, design a simple entry ritual. It does not need to be elaborate. It might be making a specific drink, putting on specific music or silence, opening a specific notebook, or saying a specific phrase to yourself. The content does not matter. The consistency does. Over time, the ritual becomes a cue that activates your focus state automatically. Start with a 2 or 3 step ritual. Something you can do in 2 minutes before every English practice session. And honor it consistently for 30 days. After 30 days, you will notice that your brain shifts toward focus more quickly at the beginning of each session. The ritual has become a trigger. And that trigger is a genuine cognitive asset. Part 7. The reward of deep thinking. Here is something that surprises many people when they first experience genuine deep focus. It feels extraordinarily good. Not comfortable in the easy sense. Not relaxing in the passive sense. But deeply satisfying in a way that shallow distraction never is. Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what he called the optimal experience. The state of flow. He found that people consistently reported their greatest happiness not during leisure activities, not while watching television or scrolling social media, but during states of deep, focused engagement with challenging tasks. The experience of deep focus is intrinsically rewarding in a way that shallow stimulation is not. This is neurologically explicable. Deep, focused work activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain associated with meaning, planning, and values-driven behavior. It produces a sustained release of norepinephrine and dopamine that feels qualitatively different from the quick spikes produced by social media. Richer, more durable, more genuinely satisfying. For English learners, this means that as your capacity for deep focus develops, your practice sessions will begin to feel increasingly rewarding rather than effortful. The satisfaction of genuinely understanding a difficult English text, of speaking more naturally than you did last week, of following a complex English conversation and grasping its nuances, these are experiences of genuine intellectual achievement. And they feel like it. The more you practice deep focus, the more your brain learns to associate it with reward. And the more it is associated with reward, the more naturally and easily you enter it. Deep focus becomes self-reinforcing, and the English you build within it becomes increasingly impressive. Part 8. Protecting focus in conversation. Here is an application of deep focus that most English learners never consider. Using it in conversation. Because the quality of attention you bring to English conversations is as important as the quality of attention you bring to your study sessions. Most people listen to respond rather than listening to understand. While the other person is speaking, they are preparing their next sentence, thinking about vocabulary they want to use, worrying about grammar. Their attention is partly on the speaker and partly on their own performance anxiety. And the result is that they miss a significant portion of what is being said. Deep listening, bringing your full, undivided attention to what another person is saying, is one of the most powerful communication skills available. Research by Michael Nichols at the College of William and Mary shows that people who feel genuinely heard experience significantly greater trust, connection, and willingness to engage than those who feel only partially attended to. For English learners, deep listening serves a dual purpose. It makes your conversations richer and more genuinely connected. And it gives your brain maximum exposure to the language as it is actually used, in context, with natural rhythm and vocabulary, which is the most powerful form of language input possible. Practice this in your next English conversation. Make a conscious decision to listen completely before forming your response. Let the other person finish. Notice the words they choose. Notice the structure of their sentences. Not analytically, curiously, with genuine interest in what they are saying, and then respond from genuine engagement rather than from your prepared script. Part 9. The long-term payoff of focused English practice. Let us talk about what focused English practice builds over time. Because the compound interest of deep, consistent practice is extraordinary in ways that are difficult to fully appreciate until you experience them. After 30 days of consistent deep English practice, most learners notice measurable improvements in their ability to understand spoken English at natural speed. Vocabulary that previously required effort to recall begins to appear automatically. Speaking feels less effortful and more natural. After 90 days, the changes become more dramatic. Reading comprehension improves significantly. Writing becomes more fluid. The internal translation process that most learners go through begins to shorten or disappear for familiar vocabulary and structures. English starts to feel like a language you inhabit rather than a code you decode. After 1 year of consistent deep practice, the transformation can be genuinely extraordinary. Research on language learning outcomes shows that learners who practice with high focus and consistency for 1 year outperform learners who practice for 3 or 4 years with low focus and consistency. The quality of your attention during practice matters more than the quantity of time you spend. And the benefits extend far beyond language ability. The capacity for deep focus that you build through English practice transfers to every area of your intellectual life. You become better at your work, more creative in your thinking, more capable of the kind of sustained intellectual engagement that produces exceptional results in any field. Part 10. You are building something real. Here is what I want you to feel as we approach the end of this video. A sense of direction. A sense that every focused English practice session you complete is not just improving your language. It is building a more powerful version of your mind. Because that is exactly what is happening. Every time you sit with a difficult English text until you understand it, you are strengthening your capacity for deep attention. Every time you speak in English with full concentration on what you are trying to express, you are building the neural pathways of fluent, natural production. Every time you listen to complex English with full presence, you are expanding your brain's capacity to process sophisticated language. You are not just learning English. You are training your mind. And a trained mind, one that can focus deeply, think clearly, and sustain attention on what matters, is one of the most powerful and valuable things a human being can possess in the modern world. Intelligence is not a fixed gift. It is a capacity that grows with use and shrinks with neglect. And the most important way to grow it is through the consistent practice of deep, focused, intentional thinking, which is exactly what serious English learning provides. Final message. The world is getting louder, more fragmented, more distracting. And in that world, the ability to focus deeply is becoming rarer and more precious every year. The people who protect their focus, who guard their deep thinking time, who practice the discipline of sustained attention, these people have a genuine advantage. Not just at work. Not just in language learning. In life. You have the ability to be one of these people. Not because you are naturally more disciplined than anyone else, but because you now understand what is at stake and you have the knowledge to do something about it. From today, I want you to treat your focus like the valuable resource it is. Protect it. Build conditions that support it. Practice entering it. And use it for your English learning every single day. Because here is the truth. Your English fluency is waiting on the other side of your focused attention. Every word, every grammar pattern, every natural sentence is there, ready to be acquired, the moment you bring your full mind to the practice. You are not behind. You are not missing some secret. You are simply one decision away from giving your English the focused attention it has always deserved. And when you give it that attention, consistently and deliberately, the growth will be unlike anything distracted practice has ever produced. Something inside you is ready to think more deeply. Something inside you is ready to focus. And your English, and your mind, are ready to reflect that focus back to you in ways that will genuinely change how you see yourself. Now I want to hear from you. Write one English sentence in the comments. Tell me this. What is one area of your English practice where you are going to commit to deeper focus this week? One sentence. Simple English. Your real intention. I read every comment carefully. If this video helped you, subscribe to Gentle Wisdom. And remember, deep focus is not a luxury. It is the foundation of everything you want to build. Protect it. and watch what you become. See you in the next video.